What would you do if you saw Tom Brady stranded in the pouring rain? It sounds like something out of a movie, doesn't it? But sometimes real life is even stranger and more beautiful than fiction. This story begins not in a stadium or a spotlight, but on a quiet road outside Tampa, on a day where the sky couldn't decide whether to cry or scream. A 13-year-old boy named Eli saw a man struggling with a flat tire in the rain. He didn't recognize him at first. Soaked hoodie, head down, trying to change the tire with trembling fingers. Eli offered to help, not because he expected anything, but because he was raised right. What he didn't know was that the man was none other than Tom Brady. Yes, that Tom Brady. The GOAT. The man whose name echoes through Gillette Stadium in New England and shines under the Florida sun at Raymond James. But what happened next will break your heart and then rebuild it. This isn't just a story about a boy helping a football legend. It's about what it means to do the right thing when no one's watching. It's about loss, trust, and the kind of reward that can't be measured in trophies or rings. And by the end of this story, you'll see Tom Brady in a way you've never seen him before. Not as the quarterback, not as the 7-time Super Bowl champion, but as a man who remembers the smallest acts of kindness. Stay with us until the end, because what you're about to hear may change how you see Tom Brady forever. Eli Jenkins was just walking home from school when the Florida skies opened up. It was one of those late spring downpours Tampa is famous for. Warm, relentless, and loud. His backpack was soaked through and his shoes squished with every step. But as he passed a quiet stretch of Bayshore Boulevard, something caught his eye. A black SUV sat awkwardly on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking. One tire was flat, and a man stood hunched beside it, struggling with a lug wrench. No one else was stopping. Eli hesitated. His mom always told him not to approach strangers, but something about the way this man moved, tired, soaked, frustrated, pulled at him. "You need help?" he called out, stepping closer. The man looked up, and for a split second, Eli froze. The face was familiar, rugged, tan, focused, but under the rain and hood, he couldn't place it. "Yeah," the man said, his voice low but calm. "I've got it mostly done, just a little stuck." Without another word, Eli dropped his backpack and knelt beside him. The two worked in silence, the rain masking everything but their hands on metal. Eventually, the tire was changed, the tools packed up, and the man offered a quiet, "Thanks." It wasn't until the man smiled, brushing wet hair from his face, that Eli saw it clearly. Tom Brady. His heart skipped. He wanted to scream, ask for a selfie, say something cool. But nothing came out. Brady gave a small wave and drove off, just as a silver car pulled up behind Eli. Two teenagers jumped out. At first, Eli thought they were going to say hi, but within seconds, one grabbed his soaked backpack and the other shoved him into the wet grass. They were gone in a flash, tires splashing down the street. The backpack, his phone, his homework, everything, gone. He walked the rest of the way home in silence, still wet, heart pounding. He didn't even tell his mom what happened until the next morning. After all, who would believe him? But someone else had noticed, and that moment, under the rain, would ripple further than Eli could have ever imagined. Tom Brady had always valued privacy. Despite being one of the most recognized athletes in the world, he kept his personal moments close to the chest. That afternoon in the rain was no different. He didn't post about it, didn't mention it to reporters, didn't even bring it up to his team, but it stayed with him. Later that night, sitting at his home in Davis Islands, still damp from the downpour, Tom kept thinking about the boy. The way he didn't hesitate, the way he didn't ask for anything, not even an autograph, just helped, quietly, sincerely. Tom had known fame long enough to recognize when someone wanted something from him. But this boy hadn't. That mattered. He told Giselle about it over dinner. She smiled and said, "Maybe that boy saved your back." Tom laughed, but deep down, he knew it was more than that. It wasn't just about changing a tire. It was about being seen, as a human, not a hero. The next morning, he asked one of his staffers to look into local camera footage, traffic cams, nearby businesses, to see if they could find out who the kid was. "Just curious," he said. But it wasn't just curiosity. Tom remembered what it felt like to be young and unnoticed. Back at the University of Michigan, he'd been the backup, forgotten. He had fought for every snap, every chance. Nothing had come easy, and this boy, no name, no spotlight, just heart, reminded him of that. Meanwhile, Eli was back in school, sitting in damp shoes and pretending everything was fine. His mom had called the police, filed a report, but they didn't hold out much hope. It was just a backpack after all. No one cared. Until his school principal called him into the office. There, waiting in a crisp blue polo and a ball cap pulled low, was the same man he had helped in the rain. Tom Brady. Eli's mouth went dry. He thought he was in trouble, but Tom just smiled and said, "I owed you a thank you." The principal excused herself, leaving the two alone. Tom handed Eli a brand new backpack packed with gear, a signed football, Bucks jersey, even tickets to the next home game. "I saw what happened," Tom said softly, "and I never forget the people who show up when it matters." The media didn't hear about it right away. That's because Eli didn't tell anyone, not even his closest friends. For days, he walked the school halls quietly, still trying to process what had happened. It wasn't just that Tom Brady had come to see him, it was that he cared. And that made Eli feel seen in a way he never had before. At home, things weren't easy. His mom worked 2 jobs. His dad wasn't around. There were nights when the power flickered or when dinner was just peanut butter on toast. But his mom always said, "We don't need much to do right by others." That's why Eli helped that day. Not because he recognized Tom Brady, not because he hoped for anything in return, but because someone needed help. And yet, in return, his kindness had cost him. The stolen backpack wasn't just a loss of material things, it was the loss of his only phone, a gift from his mom after saving for nearly a year. It was the college application essays he'd started early. It was the drawing he had made for his late grandfather's birthday. He never told Tom that, but Tom had been a kid once too. A backup quarterback with no spotlight, a 6th-round pick. A man who was doubted more often than believed. He knew what it felt like to be overlooked and to keep showing up anyway, so he did something Eli didn't expect. A week after their meeting, Eli received a letter in the mail. No fanfare, no headline. Inside was a handwritten note. "What you did reminded me why I started playing in the first place. It's not the trophies, it's moments like these. You made someone's day better without asking for anything. That's real greatness. Tom." Along with the letter came something else, a new iPhone, with a note that simply read, "For the essays and for the drawings, keep going." Eli sat on the edge of his bed, reading the letter again and again, until the ink smudged from the tears on his fingers. Because in a world where good deeds often go unnoticed, this one had quietly changed everything. Tom Brady is known for his comebacks, 28-3 against the Falcons, the impossible throws in crunch time, the ice-cold calm under pressure. But what most people don't see is the quiet work he does off the field. The moments no cameras catch, the gratitude he carries like armor. For Tom, legacy was never just about Super Bowl rings. It was about who he became through it all. Helping Eli didn't make headlines, and that was intentional. When a local reporter caught wind of the story, Tom's reps declined to comment. "It's not about PR," he told them. "It's about doing the right thing." That philosophy came from years of being underestimated. From the benches of Michigan to the draft day disappointment, Tom had built a career on being overlooked and fighting back with grace and persistence. So when he saw a kid like Eli, quiet, kind, overlooked, he saw himself. He later told a friend in passing, "That boy reminded me why I still love this game. Not the fame, not the stats. The humanity of it." Meanwhile, Eli's mom noticed something change in her son. He was still quiet, still thoughtful. But there was a new kind of confidence. He wrote his essays again, started drawing again. He even began helping other kids at school with homework, telling them, "It's what my mom and Tom Brady would want." The story began to spread through whispers, not because Eli told it, but because others saw how he changed. Teachers noticed, classmates noticed, and one day his school counselor asked him, "What happened to you?" Eli just smiled and said, "Someone saw me." That's all. Sometimes the smallest gestures echo the loudest. And for Tom Brady, helping that boy wasn't a publicity stunt. It was a reminder that the greatest legacies are built not in end zones, but in the quiet spaces where kindness meets character. The day of the Buccaneers' home game arrived, and for Eli, it felt like waking up inside a dream. The tickets Tom had given him weren't just for any seats, they were on the sidelines. Eli had never even been to a game before. He and his mom arrived at Raymond James Stadium early. The air buzzed with excitement, fans in red and pewter chanting as they passed through security. But for Eli, the loudest sound was his own heartbeat. He clutched the lanyard with his pass like it was gold. They were escorted down to the field just before warm-ups. The grass looked greener than anything he'd seen. The players? Giants. And then, through the sea of helmets, Tom spotted him. He jogged over and handed Eli a football, already signed. "You made it," he said with a grin. "Told you I don't forget people." Eli smiled, but it was his mom who choked up. "Thank you," she whispered. Tom just nodded as if to say, "This is how it should be." During warm-ups, Eli stood just behind the sideline ropes, watching every pass, every huddle. He didn't move, didn't speak, just absorbed. When the game started, Tom looked sharper than ever. It wasn't his most spectacular performance, no crazy comebacks, no record-breaking throws. But he was steady, in control. After one particularly crisp touchdown pass, he jogged back to the sideline, looked over at Eli, and winked. It was small, but to Eli, it was everything. After the game, a quiet moment passed between them again. No big words, no speeches, just Tom saying, "Keep showing up. That's how you win in life." As they left the stadium, Eli asked his mom, "Do you think I'll ever get to play here one day?" She smiled, brushing the sweat from his forehead. "I think you already did." For a boy who gave without expecting, and a man who built greatness on gratitude, it wasn't just a football game. It was a moment where two paths, one rising, one legendary, crossed in the most human way possible. Back in the locker room after the game, Tom sat quietly at his locker, unwrapping the tape from his wrists. Around him, reporters buzzed, players shouted, music blared. But his mind wasn't on the game, it was on the boy. He pulled out a folded note from his duffel bag. Eli had given it to him before leaving the stadium. Handwritten, a little smudged, but clear. "Thanks for seeing me. I didn't think people like you noticed kids like me. I'll never forget it. Eli." Tom read it twice, then tucked it into his wallet, right next to a picture of his own son. For all the trophies, all the accolades, this small piece of paper suddenly felt like one of the most important things he'd ever received. And maybe that's what legacy really is. Not what's shouted from the stands, but what's quietly passed from hand to hand, heart to heart. A few days later, Tom shared the story with the team during a closed locker room meeting. He didn't name names. Didn't make it about him. He just told them, "Remember who you are off the field. That's the part they'll remember long after the highlights fade." It stuck with the younger players. Some began quietly doing school visits. Others donated gear anonymously. No press, no cameras, just the ripple effect of one boy in one rainstorm doing the right thing. As for Eli, his world stayed small. School, home, drawings, late-night homework. But his confidence grew. His essays became bolder. He started talking about becoming a sports journalist, or maybe even a player himself. He told his friends, "I just want to make people feel the way he made me feel, seen." And Tom? He kept going. Another game, another season. But whenever he opened his wallet, there it was, the note. A quiet reminder that the most lasting victories don't come with confetti, but with connection. Months passed. Eli didn't become famous, he didn't go viral, and that was okay. Because what he got was something far more valuable. a belief in his own worth. He still walked home from school most days, but now with his head held a little higher. He didn't forget the rain or the robbery, but he didn't let those moments define him. They shaped him. Tom Brady never brought it up again in interviews, never shared it on social media, but people close to him say something changed after that. A quiet shift. A renewed sense of why he played and what really mattered. And every now and then, he'd check in. A new book in the mail, a message before a big test. Nothing flashy, just enough to say, I remember. One act of kindness, one storm, one boy. And for both of them, life would never be quite the same. In a world obsessed with headlines and highlight reels, the quiet moments are often the most powerful. A boy kneeling in the rain to help a stranger. A man, known to millions, choosing to give thanks without cameras or crowds. Tom Brady has built a legacy on comebacks, championships, and defying the odds. But perhaps his most defining moment wasn't under stadium lights. It was beside a flat tire in a Florida rainstorm when he was reminded of the kind of greatness that can't be measured in stats. And Eli? He didn't just help a quarterback. He helped a man remember who he is when the jersey comes off. He reminded us all that kindness is never wasted, even when it costs us something. Especially then, this story isn't about football, it's about character, the kind that's revealed when no one's watching. So maybe the next time you see a stranger struggling in the rain, you'll think of Eli. And maybe, just maybe, you'll remember that the smallest gestures can echo the loudest. What do you think was Tom Brady's most defining moment? Tell us in the comments, and if this story touched your heart, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness still matters. In our next video, we'll explore another incredible story that proves how resilience can change everything.